Hi, everybody. I'm Juliet Singler, and I'm your instructor for History of Rock and Roll, MUS 137, and welcome to the first week of class. I hope you've been navigating yourself through everything and you understand how to do everything, but I'm here to just give you a little further instruction and to highlight some of the things in class. First of all, your book is called What's That Sound? Here's a picture of the book, and it's available in regular hard copy and also an ebook. Whichever way you want to order it, I believe you can rent it, you can buy it, but it's a very good textbook, and I hope you'll enjoy reading. The author is John Kovach and Andrew Fleury, and it's published by Norton. Also, I wanted to highlight in your syllabus the grade calculation that you'll find on the second full page. So that is posted under your syllabus folder, and we're going to have 15 points worth of homework assignments, and these will be short essay questions that I'll ask you about your reading and about the listening that you've done. Then we'll have some discussion questions, and these questions will mostly be in two parts. The first one is just one part, but mostly they'll be in two parts where I'll ask you for your thoughts, and then I'll ask you to respond to one of your fellow students' thoughts on a particular topic. So you get a point for your response and a point for responding to another student when we do that. Research project, 20 points for the research project. And that is open-ended. There's more details on this in the syllabus, but basically I've left it open for a wide variety of learning approaches. So some people, it may be most preferable to write a paper, and if so, the guidelines for the paper are in there. For some people, they may prefer doing an in-person presentation or a videotaped presentation, and the guidelines are in the syllabus for that as well. So rule of thumb for the written paper, it would be like 1,500 words. For the presentation in person or videotaped presentation with PowerPoint slides, we're thinking about, say, 20, 25 slides for that, and then your personal presence presenting the information as well. In either case, I'd like you to use 5 primary sources, and I also outlined that in the syllabus, but basically you're looking for things that can be verified as factual. So a blog post that's someone's opinion wouldn't be a primary source, but things that would be the actual musical work itself. Liner notes from the album, if you're listening to an album, or maybe a CD. Notes from an artist's website that the artist has written up or their publicity person has written up themselves. You can also use magazines that highlight, where they got their information. I've listed some in your syllabus. Books that do the same, where they list, well, these are our sources. This is what we've drawn from. So those are all great primary sources. I want to tell you that up front so that you can be looking for your topic and your primary sources already at the beginning of the semester. Our library is a great place to start, but even before that, once you figure out your topic, look in our textbook and see what's presented in our textbook, because sometimes that will lead you to other sources. Quizzes and midterm. So we have a variety of quizzes and a midterm, 5 altogether, and they're 5 points each for a total of 25 points. Our final exam is 15 points. And our greeting assignment that you're completing in this first week is 10 points. So that's 15 for homework. The class Class participation discussion questions are 15 points. Research project, 20 points. Quizzes and midterm, 25. Final exam, 15. Greeting assignment, 10 points. Well, in this first week of class, we spent a little time getting to know each other. We have students in this class who are taking it solely online, some who are taking it in person on Tuesday mornings at 9:30, some who are joining us via Zoom on Thursday mornings for the same class at 9:30. And oftentimes what I will post is the recording of that Thursday morning class after we've met on Zoom. But I wasn't able to do that and get my super titles included, so I'm making a new edition of it for posting and covering the same things that you would have experienced in class or on Thursday. We started off with a little get to know each other exercise. So I will tell you two truths and a lie about myself. I'd love to hear two truths and a lie about you, but for those of you who are taking it totally online, may have to wait for you to email me back with that. Two truths and a lie. Okay, I lived in Paris for about 5 months. I have a son who's 25 years old, and I had a job in high school as a mascot for a burger restaurant where I got to appear as a giant bee and interact with kids. What do you think the lie is? I'll give you 5 seconds. Did you guess that my son is 25? That's the lie. I do have a son, but he's 22. The other two are true. So I'd love to hear more about you and hear your two truths and a lie. When we had class this week, I started out by playing this selection by the Beach Boys, Good Vibrations. Maybe you know this song a little bit. Let's listen to a little bit of it.
I love the colorful clothes you wear and the way the sunlight plays upon her hair. I hear the sound of a gentle wind on the wind that lifts her perfume through the air. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. Picking up good vibrations.
I'm going to stop it right there. So we got a verse and a chorus in. And so I wanted to highlight, well, first of all, I love the Beach Boys. You know what? I grew up with older brothers and sisters. I grew up on a farm. There were 8 of us all together. I have a sister who's 20 years older than I am. And so as she was becoming a teenager, I was a little baby watching her. Well, let's see, actually, she was going into her 20s. I was watching her and my older brothers and sisters get into these dance crazes and these wonderful things that were coming up in the early days of rock and roll. Where does rock and roll start? Late 40s, it starts bubbling up. And by the 50s, it's really a thing. So my sister and my older siblings were in their heyday, their teen years, when rock was in its really wonderful period of new beginnings. So it was fun to watch that. And of course, I grew up when I was a little kid, the Beach Boys were starting their career and the Beatles as well. So when I play the Beach Boys, it gives me a great summer vibe. And I love to hear their music and talk about their achievements. And so I wanted to share that summer vibe with you, but also share about how we can listen to music in class and how you could talk about music, because that will be a big thing. I know a lot of you don't have any background at all in music. That's totally fine. I'm interested to find out more about you and what your background and what your interest is in music. But this class is all about learning to develop your abilities to appreciate music and to let it enrich your life more, which is an easy thing, right? Because we all love music and we all grew up listening to music. Mostly for me, it was rock and roll. For you, it may have been rock and roll, maybe it was another genre. But I have the privilege of helping you to learn to love music even more, which is a great thing to do. Now, along the way, we're going to be talking about the history and the culture, the political events even that helped shape the writing of these great rock and roll songs from basically the 50s to present time. And you'll be learning from me. I'll also be learning from you because I know you probably have a lot of artists that you listen to that I don't even know yet. So I want to hear who you like. Well, when you talk about music, there's certain things that you can draw your attention to. I guess the first thing would be the melody, And when you talk about melody, which is the tune, right? That thing that you can easily go around singing or singing along to. When you talk about the tune, you can talk about it in terms of the range, like does it have a wide range or a small range? Does it move in steps or does it move in leaps? All of those things are valid to talk about when you talk about melody. You can also talk about, like, in this phrase, it starts out in a certain range In the next phrase, it goes a little bit higher, so there's a build, kind of like an arc to the song. That's another great thing to discuss when you're talking about melody. Then you move to harmony. What is harmony? Well, it's what's not the melody. Everything that's not the melody, right? So all the notes that are played to go along with the melody have a particular quality, and they're usually pleasant to listen to, which we call consonant, or maybe they're a little unpleasant to listen to. That would be dissonant. So in rock and roll songs, mostly we hear consonant harmonies. And we also hear harmonies that fit standard patterns very frequently. I play guitar a little bit. I bet some of you do too. And they always say when you're learning guitar, hey, if you can play 3 chords, you can play 90% of the songs that are out there. So you'll often hear standard chord patterns using a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a 5 chord. More about that later. You don't need to know music theory to do well in this class, but we will talk about that a little bit later. So standard chord patterns are part of harmony. You can also talk about harmony in terms of whether it sounds major or minor. Major is going to have kind of an optimistic feeling, happy, optimistic feeling. Minor chord qualities will give you a more sad, even wistful feeling. We've got melody, harmony. The next thing that you might want to talk about is rhythm. And in a rock and roll song, you're going to instantly be drawn to the rhythm because it's a major feature of a rock and roll song. You're going to think to yourself, well, hey, can I dance to that? Is it danceable? Do I like the groove? And then you can go a little further into it because we can talk about rhythm in terms of whether it has a fast or slow pace in the rhythm, whether it's a duple or a triple meter. By the way, in rock and roll, the meters are almost always duple. That means that they're divisible by 2, because that's what's most danceable, right? And then the final thing that you want to talk about is the texture. So when we talk about texture, we talk about timbre, which is the way that an individual instrument can sound. For instance, a guitar is not going to sound the same as a set of drums. Now, going back to this song by the Beach Boys, you're going to find that there's a lot to talk about regarding texture and also some to talk about regarding rhythm because the Beach Boys have this really neat instrument they use in the chorus that you would have only heard in a science fiction film up till this point. It's called a theremin. You'll hear that instrument coming in on the chorus. Then we're going to see how they change the tempo to make things really interesting for the listener. This really infuriated the record companies, by the way, because they said to Brian Wilson, how are people going to dance to this? There's no steady rhythm. Let's dive in here and listen to that theremin coming in. There it is. Tempo change, right?
I don't know where, but she sends me there.
Now here's the part that the record executives really hated.
Gotta keep those love good vibrations are happening with her. Gotta keep those love good vibrations are happening with her. Gotta keep those love good vibrations.
So I just wanted to show you how they eased into and eased out of that middle section where the tempo gets slower. By the way, the record executives were wrong. Everyone loved this song, and it continues to be one of the top rock and roll songs of all time. Hey everybody, I hope you have an idea of how to talk about your songs now. welcome to class. Have a great semester.